These scenes from last night in Tel Aviv. Across Israel yesterday, hundreds of thousands of protesters took to the streets. It was one of the largest and fiercest nationwide demonstrations against the war in Gaza we have seen. Protesters are reiterating calls for the Netanyahu government to secure the release of hostages still in Gaza. Many say an expanded Israeli military offensive will put the hostages in greater risk. 50 hostages remain in Gaza, with Israeli officials believing around 20 of them are still alive. Blake Sifton is covering the story for me. He's live in Tel Aviv this hour. Tell us about this protest, Blake, what the aims of the protesters were and the message they're trying to send to the government.
Good morning, Heather. This protest here in Tel Aviv last night outside of the country's defense ministry, as you say, was one of the largest we've seen in over 22 months of war. Organizers say some 500,000 people attended, and that protest just capped off a day of protests across Israel. Protests held in Jerusalem, in Haifa, in Beersheba, and we saw highways blocked in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, dozens of people arrested, and water cannons were used to disperse the crowds. Now, the family members of the hostages are outraged by this plan to seize Gaza City. They've called it a death sentence for their loved ones because they are worried that as Israeli forces move into new areas, Hamas may execute the hostages or the hostages may accidentally be killed by Israeli forces. We've seen both of those things happen throughout the war. They are demanding that the government prioritize the ceasefire and end the war now. The protests yesterday were also partly organized by family members of fallen soldiers. The Israeli military has reportedly warned that this offensive to take Gaza City could see high casualties amongst Israeli forces. So many people here are concerned about that. They're worried that the reservists are exhausted and they want the war to end.
We know that Israel is preparing to take the next step in this planned new offensive in parts of Gaza. Looking here, in fact, Blake, at Khan Yunis there, and we can see what condition that city is left in after the fighting. But the new offensive, what is the latest detail where we are with that military plan and schedule for it?
So yesterday, Sunday, the chief of staff of the Israeli military, Eyal Zamir, approved the operational plans for the offensive on Gaza. We understand he will then present those plans to the defense minister, Israel Katz, later this week. And then the plan will be voted on by Israel's security cabinet. The military is reportedly planning to call up tens of thousands of reservists, and they estimate that the fighting to take Gaza City could last for weeks. Meanwhile, we've seen very heavy artillery shelling as well as airstrikes targeting a neighborhood in southern Gaza City called Zaytun. The Israeli military began their operation there on Friday. It's being seen as a precursor to the full offensive on Gaza City, and thousands of Palestinian civilians have been fleeing the area since Friday. Also yesterday, Sunday, the Israeli military announced that they will begin bringing in thousands of tents into Gaza. They say those will be used to house the people displaced from Gaza City further south. Of course, there's an estimated 1 million civilians living in Gaza City. Now, when I've spoken to my contacts in Gaza City, I've heard the same thing repeated, which is that many people don't plan to leave. They say they've been displaced many, many times throughout this conflict, and this time they say they'll stay where they are.
Blake, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Blake Sifton live in Tel Aviv for us.